To think that indeed asayuphinda simbone uMaestro Phelelani Mnomia is something unthinkable, considering his contribution in the choral music South Africa. I know he was involved with jazz music as well as gospel, but his enormous contribution was in the choral music. To think that, as he wrote in the piece that we just listened to, Asisayuphinda Simbone, which comes from the opera Ziyankomo, where he says Asayuphinda Simbone uZiyankomo, zindaba ezinhle zakwaZulu. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bandile Mngoma said this afternoon, Maestro Phelelani Mnomia has been trending since his passing, which is something that I, for one, appreciate so much, that when one of us is late, we come together. Kukho into ekuthiwa ngesixhosa kugcwala emswaneni. It happens with inkomo, kuthi xa kuthe kwawa enye yazo, uzibone zidibana in that one place and have this painful cry eziyenzayo as a send off for le ethe yawa inkomo. So it's very good to see that wherever you go in these platforms, you see his name trending. You see people, pouring their tributes. Ibalulekile kakhulu lonto. We must really commend ourselves for doing this as choralists in South Africa and those that are abroad, because I've seen many people sending their condolences, sending their tributes whilst they are not here in South Africa. Thank you so much for doing that. This afternoon, we are supposed to be talking about one of the topics that Maestro Mnomia was very passionate about, that of music rights, that of advancing the lives of composers in terms of development. But unfortunately, I am struggling to connect with my guests. We're supposed to have Mr. Tronix Madibe, who is a South African music producer, very knowledgeable and passionate about the issue of music rights for composers. He continues week in, week out to empower composers on how they can make a lot of, maybe not really a lot of money, but they can make something out of their music and be empowered. Because music is being played out there for money, of course, because you have to earn royalties when your music is being used commercially. If people are just having a party in their house and they just play music, they're not supposed to really pay for that music. But if there's now charging at the door and there's money being made and there's something that is being sold within that venue, it's those kind of things that we are supposed to be talking about, and where to register for your rights. So not only for composers, but for performers as well, because they contribute in terms of making this music available out there. We've got choirs that record this music, like the one that we just listened to. We have soloists that record this music and put it out there. Even them, they need to, they must earn out of their contribution towards making music available in public. That's when that music is being used commercially. So people have to register for such. So we're going to speak about that. And the other guest, Mr. Themba Madlopa, Ubratem, I don't think he is as devastated as Chiefs fans like we are, because he's a Buccaneer, only Buccaneer. So I'm not sure about Mr. Tronix Madibe, just in case kuthi kanti usazimele, because kubuhlungu ukuba yi-Kaizer Chiefs these days. So I'm not sure about Mr. Themba Madlopa, but he was struggling. I spoke to him just 10 minutes ago, trying to connect. So in the meantime, whilst Sisaba Kangela, we will just listen to the music of SBP Mnomia. And I've just shared a link if you would like to share your memories of him, share your tributes for Maestro Mnomia. It's on the comment section. Just click on that link and I'll take up your video, and then we can chat about what you would like to say ngo Maestro Mnomia. Let's listen to another piece by him, Eti Ngenani. Let's see.
Is it not easy?
Finally, we have managed to get Maestro Themba Madlopa. Ratiam, your video is off. Ratiam, can you hear me? Okay, it seems like he's still busy with something, but great, we found him in the end. We are going to chat to him. Let me try him again. Ratiam, can you hear me?
I'm here, Mfana. I was just going to get the charger. My battery is 8% now.
Okay.
Just connecting.
All right, let me play something whilst you are connecting. Then when you are done, we can start chatting. Yes, Ngipileleni is from the same opera, Ziankomo by Maestro Pelelani Mnomia. Mr. Madlopa, welcome, sir.
Yes, thank you. And bullies to the colleagues.
Yes, thank you very much. How are you this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm feeling great, though I must confess. It's still on us, eh?
Yeah, it is.
It's still on us. Yeah. It has had such an impact, eh?
Yeah, sekunjalo. But I am seeing a lot of positive things that have happened since his passing. You know, the kind of unity that is starting to build among conductors, among composers in particular, because as you would know that before now, there has not been any platform where composers are together, you know, talking about the lives of composers going forward. And that has happened since the passing of Mr. Mnomia. To an extent that there was that presentation that was done by another composer, Mr. Tulani Mtetra, in KZN yesterday in the funeral, where a collage of pictures and messages from composers was presented to the family. You know, so I'm seeing that, which gives me hope. You know, but I wanted to check first for those people who don't really know the kind of man that Mr. Mnomia was. Can you describe him? You know, the kind of person he was.
You know, Umnomia, firstly, I must say, when we met, like I said in my eulogy, ukubakhona kwethu kwa-choral music has been a coexistence. Singazani, but we were existing within the same space, but in different roles. And we share the same timeline. Ilapho-ke sithe masihlangana saqala sabuya, we went back to that history. Hey, was that you? Because the timeline speaks for itself. The 1981, 82s, the Italian salads and all that, I was also actively involved. So we were crossing, but we did not know each other. And when I did the Italian salad in 1981, when we won it in the NCF in Joburg City Hall, Mnomia, no Mzobe, and a lot of other guys who were in Durban Sings, who were singing for Durban Sings, and they were there. They were there at the Joburg City Hall, and Mzobe even remarked when I had sung, "Sihamba nawe eThekwini." Now, those are things that they told me now when we were existing, knowing each other very well. So in knowing Umnomia, firstly, what struck me, I remember in 1991, it was for some competition in the East End. I just saw this signature SBP Mnomia. I hardly knew the face. But the song was so, and then what struck me again about the song is that it had the element of Zulu tonology. Lento yayingavile ukwamkeleka emculweni, the glissandi and the portamenti, you know, the gliding of the notes. That was the first impression I got with, yes, somebody who is introducing something that we're not used to in the conventional hymnal kind of compositions. And I just never thought but I imagined a great personality, so to speak. And then when I got to meet Mnomia, I was awestruck. I was awestruck to see this humble, down-to-earth personality. And then Mangzohlangana naye bese khona many other songs that he had written. Oh no, Ihele, and ikakhulukazi his signature composition. To me, that was his signature composition. Kaningiboniseleni uphi umama wami, baphi abazali bami. Song that oozed with lots of emotion. Ngihlangana naye sekunalezo ingoma ke sezibe ne-impact enkulu kwa-choral. Then I look at this unassuming, you know, ordinary man, humble, you know, purely down to earth. No I just said to myself, it can't be. It can't be. That's what I said to myself. And then when we sat down after the competition, says dinner, Then we started going back to those days. Oh, wawukhona lapho. Oh, you were there. And then we started reminiscing, and we were coexisting unknowingly, singazani, kodwa sazana.
You know, you're touching on something very important right here, which I feel we need to really engage on it. It's been raised in many platforms on social media that some composers in South Africa are still following the kind of writing that was taught, that hymnal kind of writing that was taught by missionaries to Black people in South Africa. The one that follows 1-1-4-5-1 kind of a chord structure.
Yes.
And you are mentioning that Umnomia added things that are embedded in the Zulu culture. What else can you say about his contribution in the growth of choralism in South Africa?
You know, another area of development is Umnomia. And you know, these are the things that were unheard of. Firstly, as we mentioned, it was the tonology that the music followed, and then introducing things like glissandi to exactly express the Zulu tone. And then we had that in his song, Unoha. He would introduce something like, oh, hey, that's pure Zulu. And if you followed the missionary, conventional compositional style, you would be able to express those proper Zulu, tonological effects, bring about those Zulu tonological effects. Now, another thing that he brought about, Umnomia, is the full introduction of instrumental accompaniment to our music. He was very, very, very impactful on that, because kakhulukazi kwakwazeka ukuthi ke amaculo accompaniment would be the Western pieces.
Yes.
But then he came with that and introduced that very, very significantly, and it brought about a new dimension in our music. And he was very, very much insisting on that. I remember talking to him about it and then say, in fact, we engaged with him, because I must be honest, I tried to differ with that. I said, don't you think by bringing in instrumentation to our African music, kuyadungeka umculo wethu, ulahlekelwa umsoco wawo? And as you would know, Umnomia, ikhona-ke element yakhe of standing his ground. And he would make sense to say instrumental music is just fusing flesh into what has been created. And having instrumentation is ensuring accuracy in intonation and pitch, which is to bring about flesh and bones into the music. He stood his ground, said, Madlopa. It's a fusion of Africanism and Western music. So he put it.
So before we listen to one of his masterpieces, I just want to take this point further. I always ask myself that if this is not taught or is not part of the curriculum, where new composers are being developed within universities, how are the young composers going to learn to move away from the 1-4-5? Because all that I see in most cases, it is people who are, sort of I would say criticizing people who write in that fashion. But I don't see platforms where the people who are being criticized are given space to learn so that they know what is it that is expected when we speak about African music. What will it take for us to influence universities to consider composers like Nomia's music and make it available for the teaching and learning at universities? What can we do?
In fact, let me take you slightly back. Kukhona futhi ukuthintana kwami nomnomiya in that direction in two ways. It was a highly topical subject between us. Ukuthi kunganjani kuke kube ne workshop where we will workshop the young composers and give them the on the elements of compositional styles. Because he was saying to me, now there is a trend that our African music is not music without the scope and donor and bashing, highly rhythmic kind of thing, which seemed to be something that many young composers thought was the way to go. And then we discussed issues like making music that is well grounded and well structured, in terms of progression and sectionalization, and giving the elements of dividing emotional contents of music, those kind of things. And then we felt we were voting a workshop, and we even said Bloemfontein would be the ideal venue because of its centrality, where we can invite all up and coming. And then the next thing was we need to solicit funding for that kind of venture. Each time we meet, would say, "Well, Madlopa, how about?" Because that is the platform where we could have come up with the way forward of ensuring that there's proper development at grassroots level. And then bese kwesibili ukuthintana kwami naye compositionally kwenye indlela engechaza, kodwa umuntu ongayichaza ngcono leyo uMateresa Tambo. Teresa Tambo from the Northwest, from Mahikeng, popularly owaziwa ngaleli culo Bahumahadi. Some years back, I think in the late 90s or early 2000, I was invited to the Northwest by the late Tronix Madibe to come and conduct a workshop on composition, in the arts center in Mabatu, which was known as Ramatlabana, something like that. And I had a wonderful workshop, and I was struck by the feedback from Umatambo when she humbly came to me after the workshop. Themba Madlopa, you don't know what you have done for me. And then she said, you have just laid other layers of bricks on what Nomiya has done. She said Nomiya had given her a groundwork, and she was grounded about what she got from Nomiya. And then when I came, she said, you just put another layer or layers of bricks on what Nomiya had laid. And all the time, each time I met her, she would say, Madlopa, you and Nomiya, I will always hold you dear. So somehow, when Njeza, kuba nokuthintana okuningi ngaleli qhawe eLuMnomiya. Like I say, we share the same timeline, coexisting unknowingly. Only later in life, sizothintana ngendlela eziningi. And only last year, I got a message, a very strong message from Umzwandile Matthews, saying he had already spoken Nomnomia, which the two of us should start coordinating a composers forum where composers can come together and share and take this music forward. And then it is in such a forum or network, as we call it now, where we will be able to come up with strategies and the ways to ensure that composition is brought even at university level, especially of our African music.
So profound. Whenever you met Nomia, you would learn something too. I know.
A lot.
I've met him. Either you sit with him a day or 2 hours or an hour, there's something you can learn out of it. I'm glad to see in one of the comments who is spearheading the Choral Man project. We just presented another movement tribute for Maestro Nomia. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. Perhaps this is one of the things that we must collaborate on, as we are doing for these tributes, Zika Maestro Nomia. Let's listen to this masterpiece.
You know what, Njeza?
Oh,
wow, another masterpiece by Maestro Nomia, there performed by
Conducted by
wow,
Mfana,
the reunion
it's
on the other side.
very painful, but it's very painful, eh?
Ish, 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 ish. But at least we must just use the wealth of music and heritage that these who left with us. You know, something interesting, Usis Nolfefe, whilst she was preparing the song, which few choirs actually attempted to perform.
Yeah.
She decided to ignore the story about people coming from overseas to South Africa to that big conference, your music and all. She thought about the coming of the deceased, now coming towards us. The people who know where this thing comes from, because Kuti it's a gift from them. Now, the irony, I can imagine how he was received on the other side. As now he's joining Mungu. Can
you know, as I listen to this I'm listening to the Western instrumentation. One thing he said was, let us make their instruments speak our language. And that's exactly what the instruments are doing. I mean, the syncopations there are just amazing. And that reminds me exactly of what he said. Asikwenze lokhu kwemvijoli kukhulume ulimi lwethu.
It has to.
I raise my hands. Is that
one composer that has managed to do that? Because in most cases, when you write for the orchestra, we want to write in the comfort zone of the orchestra, and not what we want to do as an experiment. And he wasn't afraid of doing that.
No, he was not. He was not. You may say whatever you say. I mean, there were lots of criticisms, if you would know. But against ubani ngoba mayesegcoba unyawo phansi hayi mfana kithi ngeke ujulule, and he had a way of defending his ideas.
Definitely.
Wonderful man, very profound character he was. And when he addressed, you see another element, when he addressed the audience, abesefaka izandla esikhwameni. And then you would think you wouldn't think Konokzai. He would come out very meticulously so. In a manner that nobody would say a thing. He would say it in his own way. I'm proud of the departure of this great man.
Now, Mr. Madlopa, there's something very important that you raised in your speech during the memorial and the funeral as well. You raised the fact that the national platforms like TV in particular, that when a musician from other genres like kwaito and house music and others, when one of them has fallen, has passed on, we see their face from the day they passed on until the day they were buried. And we don't for great men like Mr. Mnomia. Can you talk to that again? Because I think it's something that we need to engage and then continue to engage even those platforms. So to hear what is it that we are not doing right as choralists.
Njeza, it's a matter of great concern. What you said is those artists from other genres would be flighted on TV from day one until after the funeral. Every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes on our screen, the face of that artist would flash. But it beats me. I really don't understand. You see, I fell short of saying, ake ningiboniseni bakithi. Ake ningiboniseni impela nje bakithi. Why is it that we not accorded that honor? You see, the irony here is, in the same way as these other artists and other celebrated lives impact on the wider community, in the same way, choralists and those icons of the choral fraternity impact on the community in the same way. And then kuvinjwa yini ukuthi ke uma seliphanga leli qhawe bese ke uthinta umphakathi, ubonisa umphakathi ukuthi lo muntu obekade enithinta kangaka nangu Nkosi yami usehambile. Bese kuthathwa one of his signature songs, like bengishilo ukuthi ngiboniseleni uphi mama wami. When you imagine this wonderful face, this iconic face of Mnomia beamed, flashed on our screens every 20 minutes against the background of Siyabuya kwaNkwaqwa, ngiboniseleni uphi mama wami, amadlela alihlaza. That would be the great honor. Yini inkinga Nkosi yami, yini? Why? I regard it as disrespect of the highest order, of course. I just don't understand. I said the same thing umashiwe umakaya mjana. I don't understand why such iconic personalities, when they demise, it is so downplayed. I don't understand. And again, to my choralist, kuba ngathi we are non-existent. Umsebenzi ongaka Nkosi yami owenzele umphakathi. Remember that the composer is living for the community. That's why when I do workshops, I've got a triangle. Udingani uyayazi leyo triangle. Engihlale ngiyibeka njalo kuma workshop. In the triangle, the top angle is number 1. The second angle on the corner is number 2. The third angle on the right is number 3, which is the general public. Number 1 will conceive and be emotionally moved and create a musical box filled with content, emotional content. It is meant not for himself, but is it meant for that angle at the end of the flow, which is number 3, which is the audience and the general public. And for that creation to reach number 3, it has to go through number 2 to be panel beaten and shaped and, you know, done all things that they've done, and then giving the SABS stamp of approval and say it is now ready to go to number 3. That's the flow of music. It's such a profound flow from number 1, the composer, to number 2, the choirs, where it is structured and shaped and done all sorts of things and given the SABS stamp of approval, and then taken to number 3. What Nolifefe was doing now, got from Nomia and worked on it. And what she's doing, she feels it was ready to be presented for consumption by the audience. But all this profound work is not recognized. Wayenu Nolifefe, she deserved to have been honored. Ngokuthi kuboniswe lonke leli ukuthi nangu lo ntombazane nayi le mbokodo le bekade inyakazisa amadoda ku-stage isiphangalele. Why ahambe silently nje kanjalo? I'm crying.
It's really painful. It's really painful. Perhaps let's take this opportunity and whoever is watching, because I see Abo Michael Digana, Omamandi Sambuza, and many others are watching. What can we do? What can we do? You know, to make sure that perhaps these latest heroes who've just fallen are the last ones to be treated like this. What can we do?
I think we should follow what Monty Manamela had already started. After the Jana demise, after the funeral, Monty Manamela wrote a stinging open letter to one of the leaders in the SAPC about the same issue. I think we must follow out that point. And we need to, in the same way that I've seen in the what to call in the choral mag, or Dingan, no they were discussing about there should be a change. It can't be that things shall be left like this. I think all those issues must be attacked. This is the legacy. Things must be changed. You raise an issue to me. We spoke privately, and that's very serious that you spoke about the issues of the legacy in terms of honoring the remunerations and all that, recognizing his work. It needs to be followed up.
Yes, this conversation, let me promise our viewers again, I am going to try and get either, if I don't get Mr. Tronix Madibe, who had already committed, but unfortunately we couldn't connect. Maybe I'll get someone else if eventually we don't get him. We need to speak about the issue of music rights. Because I was asking, now that Maestro Nomia is gone, what assurance do we have that the kind of output that he contributed in this country will be able to sustain his kids, even take them to school and make sure they are taken care of after contributing so much? I mean, the choirs that sang, they know the story of King Bande. The people who sang Ushaka Gasenza Ngakona, they know the story of the King Shaka. The people who sang Mdanami, they know what happened in 1970 in depth because we sang that music. There's quite a lot that the composers are contributing, but when they are no more, there must be contributions that can be made. Their kids, I mean, after sacrificing so much time, so I was raising that. It's something that we really need to engage on, Mr. Madlopa.
Njeza, like you said it, we need to have a formal, well-structured workshop of composers and other practitioners, and invite to Tronix Madibe because he's got a wealth of information around such issues, and let him work in all areas, in all those areas that regard publishing, the rights and all that. And then, number two, we should have a well-structured delegation to confront or approach the SABC about the issue of recognition when one of us is demised. And also, the same well-structured delegation has to sit down with Natim Tetu and his team and put our case on the table to say, and obviously they will say we are unstructured, which to me is such a terrible excuse, because we are existing. We are a sophisticated existence. We are not a wishy-washy music-making kind of what you call of organization. We are a sophisticated organization. We create music in the most sophisticated manner, taking into consideration all forms of the elements of the community. So those are the areas we need to approach, and I guess we need to be respected. If you think of how much we put into this art form, from Sasuke to at all levels, think of the amount of effort that is put in there. Now, this soldier Umnomia, when did it start? Or is it a problem with this choral classical music? Because even way back, Nako Mozart, kwakhona lokungahlonishwa lokhu. Kwakhona nangalezo ikhathi ukuthi music wabo is not taken, and then he has to be taken to the royal, the palace, and then kube khona ihlonishwana lapho. Yini kwenziwa yini lokho? because I know for a fact I've got friends in overseas who are facing the same problem. Yo, I don't know.
Let's hope Mr. Madlopa ngesixhosa besawuthi uba sawukwazi ukuthi ekugqibeleni ngesixhosa ngokuwa Maestro Phelelani Mnomia silubonile usindiso. Let us save our genre, let us save our art form ngokuwa kukaMr. Mnomia. Let's do things differently because he's always advocating for this. There must be growth, we must be recognized. Let's take that responsibility. And I hope it doesn't end here in this conversation.
Yes. Figuratively, I would say, it is a huge tree that is falling. It is a baobab tree. And when a huge tree like that hits the ground, it shakes. It shakes the earth.
Exactly.
Figuratively speaking, Ugwa Walil Kawe has to shake us to move to other levels in this genre. Ngiyabonga Njeza.
Definitely. We have Omama Abafana Noma Umande Kuza. We've worked for the department.
Mama wami, Yabingelela Mama wami. Oh, it's been long. Thanks. Sibusisekile by these young men on Njeza who keep on bringing us together like this. These young men are a blessing to this genre. Yabingelela Mama wami. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We need to engage Omama Laba because they've wealth of knowledge kule genre. They have a lot to offer. I mean, she's the one who brought up the issue of understanding the value chain within what we're doing, which I keep talking about because I feel it's the most important thing to do, to understand the value chain that is involved in whatever activity that we are doing, be it business or running an organization. So thank you so much, Mr. Madlopa, for joining me this afternoon. And thank you so much to everybody that watched and followed the conversation. And for those that made contributions. Next week,
yes.
Your words of Valelisa.
Yeah, thanks, Njeza. Like I said to Mamguza, you guys are a blessing. We're proud of you, young men. We're proud, very proud of you. And as a parting shot, the comment Mamguza ngiyayibona lapha ikhuluma nge-sports, arts and culture. Usizwile isikhalo sika Wiseman Mkhize at the funeral when he expressed so deeply his disappointment about the provincial arts and culture. It was an embarrassment. It was such an embarrassment. In the province, the provincial platform of arts and culture has done what Wiseman said. It must be challenged. These things must be challenged. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Nokuba akukuhlanga kodwa sithi kuhle kwethu as we bid farewell to Maestro Phelelani Mnomia. Siyabulela kakhulu ngomculo ongaka that he contributed to the sector. And like I said, I hope ukuwa kwakhe is going to bring us together as the nation, as the choral fraternity, and that we will be able to speak in one voice and be able to take this genre forward. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and good afternoon.